Good afternoon, book lovers of the internet. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. I am Book Nerd 802, and in this video, I am going to be telling you a bit about my third day of teaching practice. As you might know, I am at the moment studying to become an English teacher, so I have 5 weeks of practice at one of the church schools in my country, and honestly, today has been a very, very long day. I had a very horrible start to my day. I taught one class a double language lesson where we spoke about the topic of money matters. We had a lot of interesting conversation about money, about the article I told them to read, and I felt as though they really enjoyed the lesson, as though they got a lot out of it in terms of vocabulary and pronunciation. I also organized a Kahoot for them towards the end of the lesson. However, today I had my first visit at the school, which means that an examiner showed up to watch my lesson and give me criticism. And give me criticism, she certainly did. She wrote about 4 pages of criticism. She made some very, very good points. I do think that she was rather harsh in certain cases because some of the advice she gave me isn't necessarily applicable to every single lesson. And just to remind you that this was my second time meeting with this class, and I am still trying to get to know them better, still learning their names. To add to that, there were some students who were even missing. I did write down a sheet with all of their names and the places they are seated in. However, I of course don't yet know their names, and that was something that she pointed out. One thing that she didn't enjoy was that the lesson was too teacher centered. Apparently, as a teacher, what I am expected to do is to give most of the work to my students rather than do it myself, and I have to give them more opportunities to work in pairs or groups so that the lesson is oriented for the students rather than for the teacher to consistently listen to himself in my case. Now, she also told me that I have a good teaching voice. I have a tolerable voice. I'm not quite sure whether she mentioned tolerable or even a soothing voice to listen to. Not quite sure which word she used exactly, but she told me that it's a good teaching voice, that I am good with the students, that I came across as calm, that I have the brains, that my level of English is adequate to teach the subject, which I suppose should have been the least of my concerns. But for future lessons, what I think I should focus on is to give the students more time to work together and interfere less as the teacher. One other thing which I did incorrectly was to not follow the book exactly. In fact, I think I went off book during several occasions because I thought that the book would be rather boring to follow step by step. So I went out of my way to come up with exercises which would help the students to think more critically or creatively. And that was a big mistake. I still haven't yet fully understood how to pace myself during the lesson. In fact, I was meant to cover some grammar exercises today, but I only managed to finish reading comprehension with the students. And one other thing, which is apparently a big no no when it comes to reading lessons, is to tell your students to read out loud to the rest of the class because for some reason the other students will not be paying attention and the person reading will not be understanding anyway. So apparently that is not a good idea. It is also not a good idea for the teacher to read the text to the students for very similar reasons. With reading, what is expected is to tell the students to read individually and then answer questions in order to have a purpose to do so, which I suppose is stuff that I already knew, right? The fact that reading is something that is very personal, that is something that I knew already. But since it is still my second day with these students and I am still learning who they are, what they bring to the table, their level as well, I just wanted to see whether they have adequate pronunciation, whether they're comfortable speaking in front of a class or not. whether they have any issues with public speaking, whether they'd be willing to raise their voices or not. That is what I was trying to gauge, but that was apparently a bad idea, and I will definitely not be repeating that so called mistake. Um, we all have our philosophies, there are several ways of teaching, and the irony is that I got positive feedback from my students with regard to how structured the lesson is, with whether or not they learned anything, with what was memorable from the lesson, what they enjoyed the most. And then I got very harsh feedback from the person who visited, who observed me on my third day of teaching practice. I'll take this with a pinch of salt, although I will apply a lot of the advice to future lessons because this is what is expected of me at the moment. I mean, nothing is too deep at the end of the day. I do understand that a lesson should be more structured. It was also partially my fault for not updating the lesson plan because I'm just too exhausted to do so. I can't bring myself to do a lot of work, then go back to it and edit all the issues there might be with the lesson plans in this case. So that was partially my fault for not updating it accordingly. Um, I think that's basically it. I taught another literature lesson today. I tried a different approach with the same poem for the bonfire. I used some different slides and I also had some answers. Unfortunately, the students have a habit of walking into class about 5 to 7 minutes late, which means that that makes it even more challenging for me to cover all the material that is required in the very, very limited amount of time I have. And I'm not really in control of when they come back to class, unfortunately. Sometimes it's the full 40 minutes, sometimes it's 30 minutes. It's a very, very short time, especially considering that I am used to teaching for 3 hours every day during the summer holidays. So I tried to take the same approach with the students I have at the moment. They seem to be enjoying the lessons. They're getting a lot out of them as well. How do I know this? They tell me that they do. They make notes. There are several things that they do not know, which I try to elicit from them and then explain further using the whiteboard or even using PowerPoint presentation slides to help them understand the literary terms, for instance. Overall, the students I have are all very, very easy to deal with. I'm lucky enough not to have any behavioral issues, and considering that this morning was quite a hiccup, it was very discouraging for me because it was honestly the last straw, and I didn't really need all that stress in the morning. But now I know what is expected to me, so I can make changes for the second, third, fourth, and fifth weeks accordingly. I also look forward to next week because there is a public holiday on Wednesday, which means that I can complete my work in a more structured way rather than do it in a hurry. And I also still have a massive problem with procrastination. I always leave things for the last minute, and I keep losing sleep over that fact. I'm missing out on doing as much exercise as I wish to, and I've hardly been doing any reading recently, unfortunately. I've just been reading a couple of pages here and there from Dune by Frank Herbert, as I mentioned in my previous videos. I'm sure it will get better from here, to be honest. Many of the people I know, many teachers who are well loved by their students, also told me that when they were observed for the first time, they didn't pass either. It was a fail, although instead of telling us that it's a fail, they refer to it as an unsatisfactory grade, whatever that means. And I think it should be much harder to be of an unsatisfactory level than some of these people from university make it out to be. And that is why I was so dismayed, why I was so shocked to hear some of the feedback she had to give me. Once again, teaching isn't something that is that deep. It might be challenging because, of course, you have to deal with many, many people every single day. So it does come with its fair share of challenges, but teaching should be taken with a pinch of salt, right? It shouldn't be taken so seriously. How else are you meant to create an authentic atmosphere for language learning? if there is so much stress, so much tension, and if the teacher is an intimidating figure in class rather than an inspirational one. But that is all I had to say for today. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe. Take a look at the rest of my content because why not? It's absolutely amazing. And I will see you in the next one, hopefully, very, very soon. Bye, guys.